Picture this. It's 6 p.m. You've just spent 45 minutes making a meal your kid actually asked for last week. Chicken, rice, some vegetables on the side. You set it down on the table, feeling pretty good about yourself. And then your child looks at the plate like you've personally offended them and says, "I don't like this anymore." Sound familiar? If you've ever bargained, bribed, or flat out begged your kid to just try one bite, one single bite, you are not alone. Picky eating is one of the most common and most exhausting challenges parents face, and most of us are stuck in this cycle of making separate meals, hiding vegetables and sauces, and wondering if our child will survive on plain pasta and chicken nuggets until they're 25. But here's the thing. There's a country where picky eating is practically unheard of, where kids as young as 3 eat fish, vegetables, aged cheese, and salad, and actually enjoy it, where mealtime is calm, connected, and honestly kind of pleasant. That country is France, and today I'm going to share the simple rule French parents follow that changes everything about how kids relate to food. No tricks, no pressure, no bribing with dessert, just a fundamentally different way of thinking about mealtimes, and it works. Let's get into it. So, what exactly is the French rule? At its core, it comes down to this. Food is not a negotiation. In French households, there is one meal. One. The whole family eats the same thing at the same time. If a child doesn't want to eat what's on the table, that's okay. No one forces them, but there is no alternative meal waiting in the wings. No backup nuggets, no "fine, I'll just make you plain pasta." The expectation is simply, this is what we're having, you're welcome to eat it, and if you choose not to, we'll try again at the next meal. Now, before you panic, this isn't about being cold or withholding. It's actually the opposite. French mealtimes are warm, social, and genuinely enjoyable. The table is a place where the family connects. Food is presented thoughtfully. Kids are talked to like people, not managed like a problem to be solved. The psychology behind this is actually really powerful. When food stops being a power struggle, kids stop using it as one. When there's no drama attached to eating, kids become curious about food rather than defensive about it. And when the adults at the table are genuinely enjoying what they're eating without making a big deal about what the child is or isn't doing, kids naturally want to join in. What's fascinating is that French parents aren't doing anything magical, they're just operating from a completely different set of baseline assumptions. They assume their child can learn to eat well. They assume exposure and patience work better than pressure. And they assume the dinner table is for the whole family, not a separate kid-friendly performance. Let's break down the specific things that make this approach work, because knowing the philosophy is one thing, but understanding how to actually live it is something else. The first element is variety and presentation. French parents offer a wide variety of foods from very early on. They don't assume a child won't like something, they just keep offering it, calmly, over and over again. Research actually tells us that a child may need to be exposed to a new food anywhere from 10 to 15 times before they're willing to try it. Not 10 times in a week, just 10 exposures over time, without pressure. The presentation matters too. Food is presented nicely, even at home. There's something about a thoughtful plate that signals to a child, this is worth your attention. It doesn't have to be fancy, it just needs to feel like care went into it. The second element is patience without pressure. This one is hard for us because we are wired to worry. When our kid isn't eating, our brain goes straight to, are they getting enough nutrients? Are they going to be okay? And that anxiety leaks out in how we talk about food, how we watch them at the table, how many times we ask, are you sure you don't want to try it? French parents largely don't do this. They're not indifferent to whether their child eats, but they've made peace with the fact that a single meal isn't a crisis. They trust the process, and that calm, consistent energy communicates something really important to the child. Food is safe. Eating is pleasant. There's nothing to fight about here. I love the story of a mom named Sarah, a mom living in Paris with her 2-year-old daughter, Lily. Back in the US, every dinner had become a showdown. Lily would cry, Sarah would stress, and half the time they'd both end up in tears with a plate of barely touched food on the table. After moving to Paris and watching how her French neighbors handled meals, Sarah made one shift. She stopped reacting when Lily refused food. She just moved on, kept the meal pleasant, offered again the next time. Within a few weeks, Lily started eating things Sarah never imagined she'd touch, including zucchini, which had previously been the enemy. The third element is involving kids in the process. French parents often bring children into the kitchen, not in a structured, educational way, just in the normal way. Come stir this. Can you wash these? What do you think this smells like? When a child has had a hand in making a meal, they feel connected to it. They're invested, and that investment makes them far more likely to at least try what ends up on the plate. Even taking children to a market and letting them choose a vegetable they find interesting can be enough. Ownership changes everything. The fourth element is consistency with meal structure. French families eat at set times. There's typically a structured lunch, sometimes a small after-school snack called le goûter, and dinner. Outside of those times, there's not a lot of grazing or snacking on demand. This matters because a child who isn't particularly hungry is never going to be adventurous at the table. Hunger, real, appropriate hunger, is actually your best ally when it comes to getting kids to try new things. Okay, so how do you actually start applying this in your home, especially if you've been in the picky eating trenches for years and your kids already have strong opinions about what they will and absolutely will not eat? Here's where I want to be honest with you. This is not a one-week fix, but you can start making shifts right now that will compound over time. Here's how. Start small and be strategic about new foods. Don't reinvent your entire menu overnight. Instead, try introducing one new food alongside things your child already likes. If your kid loves pasta, make pasta and put a small portion of roasted asparagus on the side. Don't comment on it, don't push it, just let it exist on the plate. The goal right now isn't eating, it's familiarity. Eventually, familiarity becomes curiosity. Model the eating habits you want to see. This is arguably the most powerful thing you can do, and it costs you nothing. Eat the food yourself. Talk about how good it is, not in a performative, look at me eating my broccoli way, but genuinely. Kids are watching you all the time. If you wrinkle your nose at a vegetable, they notice. If you eat with real enthusiasm and pleasure, they notice that too. I think about a dad named Marcus who spent years telling his kids to eat their fish while he quietly moved it around his own plate. Once he realized he was sending the message that fish was something to be endured rather than enjoyed, he started genuinely experimenting with fish recipes he actually liked. He got into cooking salmon with lemon and herbs, something he genuinely looked forward to eating. And slowly, almost without trying, his kids started reaching for it. Make meals a phone-free, pressure-free zone. Turn off the TV, put phones in another room. This isn't just good for getting kids to eat, it's good for your whole family. When the table is calm and connected, meals become something kids actually want to be part of. And kids who want to be at the table are kids who are more open to eating what's on it. Try to keep conversations at dinner light and interesting. Ask about the best part of their day. Share something funny that happened to you. Make the meal something that happens in the context of a good time, not the main events that everyone is stressed about. Hold the line gently but consistently. This is the part most parents struggle with the most. When your child says they don't want what you've made and asks for something else, the temptation to just make them the pasta, the nuggets, the toast is overwhelming. You're tired. You don't want a meltdown. You just want them to eat something. Here's what French parents would typically say in this situation in the gentlest way possible. This is what we're having tonight. You don't have to eat it, but there isn't anything else. And then they move on. They don't make it a thing. They let the child sit with that reality without turning it into a battle. Will your kid go to bed a little hungrier than usual the first few times? Possibly. Is that a crisis? It isn't. Children are remarkably good at eating when they're hungry enough, as long as they know that holding out for nuggets isn't going to work. This approach isn't just anecdotal, though the anecdotes are pretty compelling. There's real research behind why it works. Studies on repeated neutral exposure to new foods consistently show that children who are exposed to a variety of foods without pressure are significantly more likely to accept and enjoy those foods over time compared to children who are either forced to eat or given free rein to eat only what they want. A landmark study published in the journal Appetite found that parental pressure to eat actually backfires. It increases food rejection rather than decreasing it. The more we push, the more resistant kids become. This is not because our kids are trying to drive us crazy, though it can feel that way. It's because pressure triggers a defensive response. When something feels forced, we want it less. On the flip side, research on what's sometimes called the division of responsibility in feeding, pioneered by dietitian Ellen Satter, aligns almost perfectly with the French approach. The parent decides what is offered, when it's offered, and where eating happens. The child decides whether to eat and how much. That clear division of responsibility removes the power struggle entirely. Families who've adopted this approach consistently report the same thing. It takes weeks, sometimes months, but the change that happens is lasting. Kids don't just learn to tolerate more foods, they develop a genuinely healthier relationship with eating that carries into adulthood. Before we wrap up, let's talk about a few traps that are really easy to fall into when you start trying this approach. Mistake 1, too many choices at once. Some parents here offer variety and interpret that as piling 10 different foods on the plate and hoping something sticks. That actually creates overwhelm and anxiety for kids. Keep it simple. A main dish, maybe 1 or 2 sides. Familiar and new, side by side. Mistake 2, being rigid in a way that creates more stress. The French approach is calm, not punitive. If your child genuinely hates something and you're seeing a pattern over a long period, that's worth acknowledging. The goal isn't to bulldoze preferences, it's to expand them over time with patience. There's a difference between a child who's never had more than 5 bites of anything new and a child who genuinely has a texture sensitivity that needs a different approach. Mistake 3, giving up after 2 weeks. This is the big one. Parents try the approach, their child refuses dinner twice, they panic, and they're back to making separate meals. Trust the longer arc. Change in eating behavior for kids is slow and non-linear. There will be nights that go badly. What matters is what you do consistently over months, not what happens on any given Tuesday. So let's bring it all together. The French rule isn't a magic trick, it's a philosophy, one built on respect for the child, consistency from the parent, and a genuine belief that kids are capable of becoming good, adventurous eaters when given the right environment. The core of it is this: one meal, shared together, with no pressure to eat and no alternative waiting in the wings. Pair that with patient, repeated exposure to new foods, involvement in the cooking process, calm and connected meal times, and a parent who models genuinely enjoying food, and you have the conditions for real, lasting change. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. The dinner table should not be a battleground. It should be one of the nicest parts of your family's day. And with a few shifts in how you approach it, it absolutely can be. Start small. Stay consistent. Trust the process. Your picky eater has more potential than you think. If this was helpful, I'd love for you to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more practical parenting content every week. And drop a comment below. I want to hear your picky eating stories. What has worked for you? What hasn't? What's the most dramatic food refusal you've ever witnessed? Let's talk about it down there. Before I go, I want to quickly answer a question I get asked a lot. What about kids with sensory processing issues or extremely limited diets? Does the French approach still apply? This is such an important question, and the honest answer is partly with modifications. For children who have clinically significant food aversions, often connected to sensory processing differences, autism spectrum conditions, or diagnosed feeding disorders, the standard one meal, no alternatives rule may need to be adapted. These kids aren't being stubborn. Their nervous systems are genuinely responding to textures, smells, and appearances in ways that most of us don't experience. For those families, working with a pediatric feeding therapist or occupational therapist is going to be far more helpful than any single rule. But for the vast majority of kids who are picky in the typical, developmentally normal sense, the French approach is genuinely one of the most effective and research-supported ways to shift things over time. You've got this. I'll see you in the next one.